This is Corolla DeVille, and you're watching Inkwife TV. For today's tattoo, my client wanted some watercolor lilies. I start by cleaning the surface with alcohol to make sure that it is free of any oils or lotion or anything like that. My stencil application product of choice is stencil stuff. It's just worked great for years, and so I stick with it. For this tattoo, I began the line work with a 5-round liner. I didn't have a reference photo other than the colors for this picture, so I'm really just letting my imagination run this whole tattoo. I wanted a little line weight variation around the edges of the flower, so I put a little bit of a heavier line on the outer edge of the petals and then ran thinner lines where the petal kind of disappears behind the word because I want it to wash out into the background. All of this tattoo, the outline work, I'm just working with solid black, but I have my machine running probably around 6 volts or so. The reason for this is that I want to run the very thin lines by lightly skimming my machine over the surface. The color the client wanted for these lilies was a magenta to very bright blue fade. I didn't want any black shading in this tattoo because it would have been too harsh. I first applied magenta and then went back in and used a purple concentrate for the shadows. Usually, I would apply the darker colors first, but for this particular process, I wanted to use the magenta to perforate and open up the skin. Then when I applied the dark purple concentrate, I don't have to try very hard to get it to stain and work into the tattoo. The petals had magenta speckles on them, and they were sort of three-dimensional, more like pink bumps. I wanted them to continue to look a little three-dimensional, so before making pink dots on there, I got my purple concentrate and my 5-round liner, and I made these little U shapes, sort of clustered on the insides of the petals. That created little shadows for the magenta dots that I would put in later. Here I go back, and everywhere that I made a little dark purple U, I add in a dot of magenta to make the little bumps. They'll be subtle by the end of the tattoo, but they'll kind of look like they blend and are natural. Here's where the beautiful contrast starts to come in. I'm applying a cobalt blue to the edge of the lilies. I am using a curved 15 mag and running my power supply at around probably 5.5 volts. This low speed allows me to run over the tattoo multiple times and not tear up the skin. It also allows me to do some beautiful fades. because I'm not pushing the ink in too far and too deep in one go. I love the contrast here of the really dark purple shadows on the inside and the dark blue shadows on the outer edge of the petals. Once I'm done with all of the dark blue on the outer edge, I take my 5-round liner and start making watercolor. You can see on the left-hand side there's a little purple squiggle line. Well, that was when I went in and put in some purple for the purple watercolor edge. I'm totally making this up as I go, but I've done watercolor so many times that I really don't have to think about it too much. I have a process that works for me, and so I just let it go, and when my instinct tells me that a color needs to go in a particular place or a splatter needs to go here or there, I just go with it. You see, I'm now filling in with purple concentrate along where I had drawn the little purple squiggle line, and I'd done the same thing with the cobalt blue at the top. After the dark colors are applied, I'll go in with a lighter blue to soften the edge of the cobalt blue watercolor portion. I then began to add some light blue into the petals. That makes a really nice transition from the purples and the magenta in towards the dark blue. I wanted to show you this portion where I add some light blue along the top part of the petal that I wanted to fade into the background. It doesn't need any dark colors up there because otherwise it would just overpower the word invade and you wouldn't be able to read it very well. Now I begin adding some light purple into the edge of where I have applied the purple concentrate watercolor. This light purple color, I can just let it wander around, and then, like I said before, I looked at the tattoo and thought, oh, now this side needs some blue. Then on the inside of the light purple, I add some magenta. Now this is one of my favorite colors to work with. I really love the mint green and light teal colors. Sometimes they're difficult to lay into the skin because they're so light and they kind of disappear. One of the techniques I've learned for applying the lighter colors at the end of a tattoo is lower your machine even more to around 4.8 to 5.2 volts. Angle your machine a little bit more than 45 degrees so that when it pushes the ink into the skin, it's really laying it into the uppermost levels. Also, keeping the machine at a lower voltage will do less damage to the skin. When it heals, there will be less scar tissue on top, and so the colors will be more bright and vivid. After I'd applied all of my light teal, I went back and filled in the little stems. I think they're called... I can't remember my flower anatomy. I know there's pistons and stamens. One of you guys can correct me. Anywho, I used light green on the inside of the stalks. We're going to go with that word. Now for the pistons and stamens, I wanted them orange, but not just a solid orange. So I used some dark orange on the lower portion of where the pollen would be, and then went back in with a yellow gold to give them little highlights. Now we get to the very end where we get to apply the white. Again, this is one of my favorite parts because you really start to see the tattoo come to life. When you're putting the white on a tattoo, especially next to a lighter color, it's not going to stand out quite as drastically, but I still like to use it because it just does something. Those little highlights, in my opinion, do a lot of good. I'm working again with my 5-round liner, but the machine is not any higher than 5 volts because, the skin has been gone over many times at this point, and I don't want it to have too much damage to it. So keeping the voltage low, I'm able to run over it one more time with the white, and the white will stay in and it won't bleed too much. And when it heals, it should retain all of those white highlights. As I said at the beginning, I really didn't have a plan of where this was going to go. The only prep work I really did was getting the stencil ready, and I kind of looked at the colors and put them in order of how I wanted to apply them. But other than that, this was just sort of playtime for me. I'm very happy with how it came out. I really enjoy the process of watching the artwork come to life on the client. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you have any tips you'd like to add, feel free to comment below. And as always, thanks for watching.